Okay, hello and welcome back. We hope that you enjoyed lunch, and the funny thing about barbecue is that it can either re-energize you or put you to sleep, and so my hope is that it's the former. So to kick over our conversations for the next 2 days, I wanted to spend some time level setting where we currently stand in Texas as it relates to digital access. And I'm going to keep my overall summary at the 500,000 foot level because I don't want to get ahead of myself and delve into some of the content that we will be digging into with our Texas Broadband Development Office Director in just a few minutes. So today's common knowledge that digital access is fundamental to economic opportunity and community prosperity. Research shows that broadband connectivity directly drives growth. And we see that counties with a higher level of broadband utilization show measurably higher per capita income and GDP growth. And many of you have already developed really thoughtful broadband plans, but you still face challenges in turning those plans into tangible progress. And we hope that this convening will support collaboration, solution sharing, and actionable pathways for your broadband implementation. And so reflecting on this past year, we saw some really big changes across the broadband funding landscape. So to start, the Texas BEAD funding allocation dropped from the expected $3.3 billion to $1.3 billion. And the BEAD guidelines have changed and projects are being reconsidered to utilize technologies such as satellite or fixed wireless. And BOOT program dollars have been allocated to internet service providers, and many of you are in the room with us today. Those projects are required to be completed by end of the year. And at the same time, the overall cost of build-out, such as materials and labor, are rising, and at the same time, the industry is also facing a national worker shortage. So across the country, there are over 205,000 additional fiber technicians that are needed by end of the year to make the infrastructure projects in the pipeline a reality. And for our education and workforce folks in the room, the positions with the highest demand are fiber optic technicians, tower climbers, network engineers, fiber splicers, and project managers. And we know that developing bringing to life these infrastructure projects and also maturing our workforce to be able to complete this work are crucial to the health of Texas. And also, it's anticipated that over 90% of all job postings in Texas will require digital skills. And for a state that's 85% rural in terms of territory, closing this divide could generate more than 23,000 new jobs and generate $6.7 billion in annual sales in rural Texas. That's a big deal. And lastly, we know that public dollars alone can't address the digital divide in our states. There's been a lot of estimates thrown around about the funding gap, and we'll delve into that, but the consensus is that it's somewhere around the $7 billion range. There is absolutely a need to bring in more private investment to your communities. And since last year, we've been working on ways to strengthen the capital ecosystem in Texas. We are in conversations with a variety of institutional investors and banks to hear what they need from their side to consider investing in and de-risking this new asset class. Systems change, particularly shifting the way that capital and resources flow, takes a lot of time, but know that there are players in your communities and at the state level and national level that are working to bridge the divide from an array of angles. And so with this very high-level backdrop, I'd like to invite Bryant Clayton, the what I call newish director of the Texas Broadband Development Office, to the stage. Can everyone hear me now? Wonderful. Okay, Bryant, congratulations on your newish position. So you've been in the office since July 2025. We'd love to give everyone in this room a chance to learn more about you, your background, what brought you to the BDO. So yes, please share more about yourself, what brought you here, and anything else that you'd like the audience to know about you.
Sure, thank you. It's been an exciting 6 months. Again, Bryant Clayton, I believe July 15th of 2025 is when I officially joined the BDO. I'm not new to the Controller's Office. I've been employed by the Controller's Office for about 15 years. Started in the statewide procurement division many years ago. I worked with local governments to try to take advantage of state contracts so they could get better deals on using their funds. And then for some time I was part of the unclaimed property division, which is about as far from the Broadband development office as you can get, but something near and dear to my heart. Similar to what we do here at the BDO, in unclaimed property, I was able to help people very directly, help people find their property, find their money that they had lost. Here at the BDO, I'm able to see that same sort of tangible benefit go back to our communities, go back to the state as a whole. And that's what I like about it. That's what attracted me to the position. Doesn't hurt that we have great staff as well, some of whom are here today, and who have done a great job getting the office up and running. So, anything else you'd like to know?
This is great, and I love that you have your eye on the money and finding as much as possible to solve this challenge. And so I know the biggest question on people's minds is, what are the top priorities for the BDO in 2026? And subsequently, how will these priorities drive various funding decisions?
Yeah. I think our priorities in 2026 are the same as they have been for the last few years. For example, making sure that all Texans have access to reliable high-speed internet, making sure that they have access to digital opportunity, making sure that they can use the broadband services effectively. More specifically, of course, we need to finish up our BOOT programs. There's a significant amount of CPF funding that expires at the end of this year. And so there's a lot of infrastructure builds that we're looking to complete by the end of the year. BEAD, of course, is also a big concern to getting that off the ground effectively. And I think we're going to talk BEAD here in a minute. But those are the same kind of goals generally that we've had and that shape our decisions. We've talked a lot today about community buy-in. That's very important to us. Here in, where we office down in Austin, that's only one part of a very large state, very diverse state. East Texas looks very different from West Texas, from Central Texas. So it's important that we understand what each community needs, and it's great that we have this opportunity like this where y'all can meet each other to talk about your needs in your communities. So part of what we try to do is just support everyone out in the communities, find community-driven solutions. We'll talk about the Texas Regional Broadband Program here in a minute, but that's important to us as well. And finally, hearing from our stakeholders. We're going to continue doing that, encourage everybody to continue coming to our regular monthly roundtables. So please join those, make your opinions known, let us know how things are going in your communities. And that will help us create our goals for 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, it's really important to have that feedback loop. And we'll also get into the community perspectives part of this later in the conversation. And given that the BEAD program is such a sizable investment in the broadband infrastructure, I'd love to hear an update about the rollout of this program in Texas and what various local and regional partners need to be paying closest attention to over the next few months.
Yeah. Well, I think we all know that BEAD changed significantly. Last June, we got the restructuring policy notice from the NTIA. At that point, we had put out a NOFA soliciting applications for the BEAD program under the old rules. And so we pulled that down and we had to completely restructure the way that we were going to run our solicitation. We were not expecting really to be accepting applications until late in the year, to be approving applications. But after that restructuring notice, we had to reconstitute our entire program. But we got NTIA approval for our final proposal on November 20th. We got NIST approval very quickly thereafter on December 4th, which was lightning fast from a BEAD perspective. There are some states that still don't have approval for their proposals yet. All told, we have 22 provisional awardees. We're going to connect more than 240,000 BSLs across the state. It's about 2,700 CAIs, community anchor institutions, that we're connecting through BEAD. About 51% of those are going to be connected with fiber. 27% will be via low Earth orbit satellite technology, and then the remaining 22% will be via wireless projects. Right now, what we're working on is environmental permitting, getting ready for that. We know that that's going to be a big driver of when these projects can get off the ground. So we're working with our provisional grantees to get their projects ready for that, for the federal environmental review. And then we're working on getting them onboarded, getting our subgrantee agreements signed and executed so that these projects can get started as soon as possible. From a perspective of our regional partners, from our communities, you've already heard it talked about today. Permitting is what I expect to be the biggest issue, getting these projects started. And so here at the BDO, we don't have any regulatory authority over that, but anything that any of us can do to help that process go smoothly is going to help BEAD be successful. And then finally, we do have a public map available showing our BEAD awards. You can filter it by county, by Senate or House district. You can see the different technology types. So encourage y'all to take a look at that.
Yes. So I imagine that stepping into this new role and then immediately having to jump into the rollout of this incredibly large effort is no small feat, right? And so I'm curious, what has surprised you most about the way that this process unfolded in Texas, and or if there is anything beyond permitting that has kept you up at night about it?
All of it, I guess, has kept me up. No. Not having a background in the broadband space, coming into this from the outside, I think I was most surprised at the amount of need that's still out there across the state and across the country for high-speed, reliable broadband. I've taken it for granted for the last 20, 30 years that where I live, where I work, I've had access to what at that time would have been considered high-speed internet, and that's continued. It was surprising to me that we still have almost 250,000 locations here in the state that don't have access to that. So I'm excited that that's going to be connected through BEAD. I'm excited that we have close to 80,000 locations that are going to be connected through the BOOT programs. So I think that was the biggest surprise, just how much is left to do. I was also surprised. I took a road trip not long ago driving between here and New Mexico through some very desolate areas. We had 5G all the way. My kids were in the back doing online games, which was great. But, a few miles away from that would have been a desert in terms of broadband access. So that's been the most surprising thing. But again, excited for the work to get going.
Yes, thank you. And so we are going to pivot slightly to talk about workforce. As I mentioned in my very high-level overview, there is a huge workforce component that's a big part of the broadband conversation. And I know that recently your team has rolled out the Building the Texas Broadband Workforce Grant Program, a mouthful. And so I'd love for you to provide a high-level overview for our audience of what the program is, how it fits into the state's broader broadband strategy, and of course, what opportunities it creates for both communities and employers.
Yeah. Well, I think we've certainly heard about the need today. right? We have BEAD that's getting ramped up. We have the boot projects, that some of which need to actually get ramped up and get finished by the end of this year. And so there is there's definitely need for fiber optic installers, for other broadband professionals. In terms of our workforce program, we awarded close to $25 million to 7 different applicants, some of whom I know are here. Some of our awardees are here, which is great. And it's focused on building and expanding programs that certify fiber optic technicians. So it's a very specific, focused program right now. Again, with BEAD, we need to make sure that when those projects get off the ground, when they get going, they have the workers necessary to sustain that work. Through these, we think about 2,800 Texans will be certified, which is great. Like we heard today, I think there is room for more potentially. So we hear that need. We're very excited to see the results of this program, and that's going to help us make future decisions about any potential future workforce initiatives.
That is really great to hear, and also we've preemptively invited a lot of the workforce grant awardees to this conversation, and so to this event and today's program, and so we will get a chance to interact with them and hear from them later in the day. So the side by side, we know video is very busy. You are launching a new stream of technical assistance through the Council of Governments, and really curious to hear what the support will look like, and again, how local partners can best engage with this.
Yeah. So yes, we did roll out our broadband program through our Council of Government. Part of that's based on the fact that, again, Texas is large, it's diverse, it has different needs based on where you are in the state. And so the Councils of Government are a good conduit to really leverage the expertise and also to figure out what needs exist in all of these different areas of the state. So we decided that we would lean on that existing infrastructure of the COGS instead of trying to build something from scratch. So our office granted $8.75 million to TARC as a pass-through, so that 23 participating councils of government who cover all 254 counties can have capacity for broadband planning. And what that means is they're going to get $107,000 annually for 3 years, so that they can have a specialist on staff to assess broadband needs or to help plan for broadband projects. As for what that looks like, I think that depends on what each area needs. And so we're happy to hear from all of you today, to hear from the COGS, what's the best way to make this program work.
Yes, thank you. So it sounds like you have so many different work streams happening at once. They are tackling a number of different issues that are part of the digital inclusion spectrum. And now that you've been in this role for over 6 months, what are your biggest lessons learned about the work?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is it's not easy. If solving the issue of broadband access was easy, we would have done it long before I got involved. And certainly it's great that we have so many people here today to talk about what needs exist and to talk about potential solutions. For me, I'm still very much in the learning phase. And it's great to hear from all y'all today who've come up, introduced yourselves, and talked about, hey, this is where I'm from, this is where I'm at, these are the challenges we have. And that's great, and I encourage everyone to keep doing that. Again, join our roundtables, voice your thoughts and opinions, and we're happy to hear from you.
And when you are doing your outreach, well, first, I would love to get a more in-depth view into the outreach strategy. Are there pockets of the state where you're not getting as much information or insights from, and any other outreach-related opportunities that you'd want to lean into more in the coming months?
I don't know that I have definite plans about additional outreach opportunities. Again, our roundtables, I think, are great ways for folks to get involved, to meet our office, to meet our staff, and to be informed about what's going on around the state. There's very little that I can say today that our staff hasn't already covered in those roundtables, which is great. They do a good job of prepping for those and keeping people informed. If there are ideas and thoughts that folks have about, hey, I would like to hear more about this particular issue, let us know. We're happy to be engaged and hear that feedback.
Yeah. And I know we don't have any shy folks in this room, so if you have any insights or feedback for Bryant before the day is over, please feel free to find him and provide him your thoughts. One other question I had about sort of in the learning by doing theme is I know that Texas is probably not the only state that's really trying to figure out how to make the adjustments after all the various funding changes. Are there particular states that you are consulting with for inspiration, or where? Who else are you learning from across the country that is doing something that you find promising?
That's a great question. I think, certainly our neighbor Louisiana has done a very nice job moving quickly on BEAD particularly. They got their BEAD proposal approved very quickly, and so we're definitely in talks with them. They also had some interesting thoughts about permitting and about how to make that process easier, about doing utility locating, which is also a big issue with permitting. If you've got a project where you're going to be trenching, you need to understand if there's any water lines that are going to cross that project, for example. And so I think that's a state that has been vocal and has been an early mover, especially with BEAD.
Yes. Casey, are we okay on time? Okay, perfect. So we always like to throw in an action-oriented invitation to the audience. And we have, as I've mentioned, we have such a diversity of perspectives represented in the room today. And I would love for you to articulate ways in which the various types of stakeholders, or it could be local government, nonprofits, funders, what is it that you would like them to do more of or differently? And in general, where is more collective energy needed in Texas on this issue?
That's a great question. That's a big question.
We can break it up. We can start. We can start maybe with stakeholders that you'd want to be more visible in this conversation, and then move on to everybody else.
Well, as you said, I don't think anybody is necessarily shy in this room, which is great, and I'm glad that we're all here. And I think we do have a good cross-section of folks from local government, from industry, from the COGS, for example, from ISPs. I think just talking to each other is important. Figuring out what's happening in your area, figuring out if there are projects that you want to take on locally. The BDO has a very defined mission. There are certain things that we can do, and then there are certain things that we can't do. For example, once BEAD is complete and we have either connected locations or we have a commitment to connect locations, our ability to run grant programs to connect last mile doesn't really exist anymore, because that's contingent on there being a lack of either access to or a federal commitment to provide access to locations. So we're not going to be able to do that kind of grant program after BEAD under the current statutory framework. So I think the call to action would be figure out what you'd like to do locally, figure out if that's something that you want to let our office know about, or if there's other stakeholders here in this room that you can connect with to get that project off the ground.
Thank you. That's a wonderful call to action. And since we have some time left, I'm going to introduce a question that you haven't seen before.
Uh-oh.
So I don't want to catch you off guard. But because the theme of our conference is broadband as economic development, I know that there are other agencies at the state government level that are laser focused on broader economic development issues. And after the 6 months that you've been on the job, what have you seen in terms of like a drive for more cross-agency collaboration at the state level? How does that, what does that partnership look like for you at the state government tier?
I think for me that just looks like keeping in contact with peers at other agencies that are involved with broadband. For example, TxDOT has a broadband coordinator that we speak with regularly. In fact, we're getting them involved with BEAD early. So TxDOT is a permitting agency that is going to have to review and hopefully approve many different BEAD projects across the state. And so as part of ramp up here, before we've even got some of these agreements executed, they've already been made aware of these are the areas in which we have particularly fiber projects where we know that there's going to have to be trenching or there's going to have to be attachment questions. And so I think that's what it looks like, is networking, staying in touch with peers, and making sure that they understand the projects we're working on and we understand the projects that they're working on.
Thank you. This is a perfect way to conclude this conversation. It's funny, I was dreading summarizing a conversation because now so many of us are reliant on ChatGPT and AI to spit out the top themes. And so the things that really leapt out at me from this conversation are, number one, come talk to Bryant about your local projects and any concerns that you may have. And Bryant and his broader team.
Yes, thank you. Who are all right here and would
all
love
right here. Yes,
to speak with
raise
you
your
all.
Hands. There we go. And so expect a flood of folks coming to talk to you about all of their observations, needs, and opportunities. And the second thing is that it's really important for local players to coalesce around what exactly they want to do, what are the remaining gaps, what are the key opportunities, and to be able to articulate what the delta is, both in terms of technical assistance and workforce development, because the BDO does have this multi-pronged approach where they have programs that address very specific issues and barriers around the digital access issue. And the other takeaway for me is that this is a really complicated process. There are still a lot of different opportunities for other funders and supporters to step in and be part of the solution. And so I think that kind of percolates down again to that local level, and making sure that when you're talking about broadband as an economic development issue, that you are building a broad tent in your community and that you're bringing in stakeholders who don't ordinarily show up to broadband conversations. And so I think the more that we have alignment between the state level, the regional level, and the local level, the faster we're going to get to connecting all Texans to affordable, reliable, stable broadband. So, Bryant, thank you again for making the time for this conversation today. I'm so excited for all the people in the room to get to know you better over the course of the next few months. Lots of connections are going to happen today, but thank you again for joining us. And moving forward in the agenda, I'd like to invite Evan Wollstonecroft, who is the program manager at the Texas Rural Funders, to the stage to share about their work on finding funding for